and we are talking Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, the game, released in August of 1995 in North America on the Sega Genesis. I'd like to clarify, by the way, we are talking the Sega Genesis game. It is very different from the Super Nintendo game, and you know this for a fact, Lou, because I told you to play the movie game, and you were playing the Super Nintendo version. You're like, I don't know, it's fine, I guess. It's just like the other one. And I'm like, no, totally different. What would you? Let me ask you, because the Super Nintendo one is basically kind of a sequel reskin of the other Super Nintendo Power Rangers game.
Yes.
Right down to the fact that all the Rangers except for the White Ranger have the same sprite, just different colors, which is very lazy. But like, what would you say are the biggest differences between the Sega version and the Super Nintendo version?
The sound.
Okay.
The sound is different. I believe the storyline is different also, because it jumps around.
Yeah.
And that's what I like the most about this. So when you suggest, like, no, you're playing, because I'm a Super Nintendo kid, and I don't think the original Power Rangers game on Super Nintendo, it's not going to win any retro gaming awards, but it's not a bad game either. It's a game. It's certainly playable. You did it on No Continues. It's a fun game. I mean, the more of a Ranger fan you are, the better it's going to be, but it's not a bad game. No. The game on Super Nintendo is a hard game.
Yeah.
It's a hard game. The fighting games are vastly different. This is where, that era of Sega versus Super Nintendo comes out, because the fighting game is vastly superior on Super Nintendo's. Not even close.
Oh, yeah.
Not even
absolutely.
close. And the game is better on Sega. It's a little bit closer, but it's definitely better on Sega.
Yeah. Well, and I would say the reason that the one we're talking about today is better is for a few reasons. One, again, the character sprites all look like... And it's funny, because when I rented this game back in the day, I was worried that I was going to be playing something similar to the Super Nintendo one, because my friend had the Super Nintendo one, and I was like, man, this is lame, and I'm not good. So when I started playing it, I was like super pleasantly surprised that the Rangers look like the Rangers, and you don't ever play as like them out of the suits. And
I was just waiting for my moment to say that. I'm like, that's the biggest thing is I don't want to play as them as civilians. I want to play as the Power Rangers.
That's the point, right? Exactly. So that you start off fully morphed, and each character feels kind of different to play. Like, the big difference is their weapons. They actually have unique weapon attacks in this, that do different things. So, like Zack with his, I should say Zack/Adam, and we'll get to that in a second. The Black Ranger, uses his axe weapon as like a machine, like a shotgun, basically. Tommy's got his Saba with he does like a spreading out power attack. Did you figure out that, by the way, the power attacks?
No, I did not. I just played it. No.
So if you hold down the attack button and you start to flash and you let go, each one does like a unique animation. So like Billy, the Blue Ranger, he takes his lance and he spins it above his head like a helicopter and knocks out guys.
Nice.
So like it's really cool. They have very unique. And then the other difference is that, unlike the Super Nintendo games, which is basically a left to right beat 'em up, this is a true like up and down, like depth of field. I don't know what you call that, but it's a classic beat 'em up in that you go up and down and left and right.
Yes.
To like a double dragon or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's the biggest difference. The other thing that I love about it that makes it better, in my opinion, than the Super Nintendo version is that it almost feels like the movie parts were added on afterwards.
Yes.
And that this was supposed to just be a Power Rangers game, because you start off playing, in the movie where you're fighting Ivan Ooze men, whatever they're called. Do they have a name? I don't even know if they have a name.
Putty Ooze.
Are they? Whatever they are.
Yeah.
But they're just like his minions or whatever, because in the movie you fight the Ooze creatures, which were not in the show, by the way. They're still to
don't
this
even
day.
get me started on that shit.
Still exclusive to the movie, but you're playing as the Rangers from the movie. Now, you're wearing your outfits from the show. Like, they don't have like the special movie armor.
Well, they do
outfits.
in the cutscenes. They do.
In the cutscenes, they do, but in the actual game, which is again another reason why I believe that this was just supposed to be a regular Power Rangers game that they tooled to make it a movie version. So you're fighting through. You start off fighting the Ooze characters. You end up doing a Zord battle, which we'll talk more about in a second. But then it does, to pad the game out, essentially, you go back and they go, wow, this is crazy. So it was Adam and Aisha and Rocky were like, this is nuts. Remember when we first became Power Rangers? And then it goes, flashback, right? And then it goes back to a story arc from the show where they're doing the transfer of power for Jason, Trini, and Zach, who in the show were like joining the Peace Corps or something, whatever it's called.
Yep.
And so they're like, well, we don't have time to be Rangers anymore. We got to give someone else our powers. So they're like, oh, well, in order to do that, you've got to go to this place to get this power ring or something.
It really surprised me.
Yeah.
That they did this, because they could have just did the game and based on the movie and added a couple extra levels.
Yeah.
Add in the Goldar as a mini boss to one of the levels, and that's it. But they took this road in it. You know, we're going to go into more depth, but I was really surprised by it.
Yeah. And you know what's cool? Because, again, like, you can pick your ranger after every level. That's normal. The other thing, by the way, I didn't even point this out. Like, it's a 2-player game on the Sega version.
Yeah.
It's one player, and I believe on the movie version as well for Super Nintendo, because the original one was one player.
Yes.
I believe. Yeah. Like why would you not want to play a co-op beat 'em up Power Rangers? That's amazing. So that right there gives it another win in the plus column. So you're going back and playing through an actual story arc from the show. And then you're back to using the original 3, Rangers, Jason, Trini, and Zach.
Yeah. I mean, there's 3 storylines in this game. And maybe we should start with the levels, because as it goes, you're going from the movie to White Light, which is Tommy becoming the White Ranger, then to the power transfer, then back to the movie. You're playing 3 different story modes, 3 different storylines.
Exactly. And again, that is the reason why, because here's the thing, the movie itself had a lot of set pieces for the Rangers to go to if you wanted to, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing on, what's that planet they go to?
I can't pronounce it.
I think it's called Phaedos.
Yeah, with the half-naked chick.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, that could be a whole set of levels, or at least one level for the Rangers to go to. That's not in the game at all.
Yeah.
And neither are those Tengu Warrior Raven-looking bird creatures, right?
Yes, they're not.
They're not. And most of the game takes place in the TV universe, which is why, again, I'm convinced that they just made a TV game and shoehorned the movie stuff in afterwards because of the cutscenes and all that. The only thing they had to add was the Ooze people and technically the Zord fights.
Yes.
So anyway, going back to the story. So so you start off in the movie, you go to the flashback where Tommy becomes the White Ranger, and then, because here's the thing too. So this is probably a good segue to the other portion of the game. You've got the beat 'em up portion, and then you've got the other sort of beat 'em up portion where you get to play as the Zords, which I think is the coolest thing, and that was another criticism I had of the Super Nintendo games, is that there's not a lot of Zord action.
No, it's only at the Super Nintendo, the original game, it was at the very end of the game.
Yeah, which, I mean, makes sense, because in the show you only see Megazord at the end of an episode, and that's kind of what that was. But, like, in this, it basically was like every 2 or 3 levels you had a Megazord battle. And you either did the Ninja Megazord and it looked more like the one from the show, by the way, not the movie, or the Falcon Megazord, or Falcon Zord, or they would, for the flashbacks, you could play as Thunder Megazord, which is dope.
Yes.
And another reason why that, I don't think you ever can play as Thunder Megazord in any other Power Rangers game, to my knowledge.
The fighting games.
Okay, I was going to say maybe the fighting one on Super Nintendo. Or you play as Tiger Zord, because you're the White Ranger. And so you kind of basically, you go through the beat 'em up levels, and at the end of the beat 'em up level, you fight the boss, or bosses in some cases. You beat them up as the Power Rangers, and then either Zed or Rita throws the wand down and makes them grow, and then you jump into the Zord level where you fight as the Zords against the boss and another. It's a one-on-one fight, so it's not like a beat 'em up, but it's still the up and down.
It's not, though. Dude,
no.
It's not. So let's jump back for 1 second, though. I'm sorry, not to say that you're wrong. You're wrong!
No, I haven't. To be honest, you played it more recent than I have. So, yeah.
So I want to chime in on this. So playing it now as an adult, I didn't play it back in the day. I was super surprised because you start the game in the movie, and I want to talk about the movie a little bit too.
Yeah, absolutely.
In general. Yeah. So you play in the movie, and it's basic. The first, 2 levels are just against Zed's Ooze guys.
Ivan Ooze's
Yes. And then you get the flashback, and then you go to White Light, which is essentially a Tommy story. So I was very impressed by you don't even have to pick Tommy. I mean, you should, because it's him becoming the White Ranger, and then they let you pick either the White Tigerzord or the Thunder Megazord. And again, being a Power Ranger nerd, and you know, a lot of our listeners on the YouTube side are, that you're given the choice of, this is going into season 3. The Tigerzord was gone once season 3 came around.
Yeah.
And this storyline, it does not involve the Thunder Megazord. So the fact that they even gave you a choice, they could have just said, this is Tommy's storyline. You can pick whatever Ranger. Oh, but for the Megazord part, you have to pick the White Tigerzord. They really did not have to give you the option of the Thunder Megazord. It didn't go with the storyline they were presenting.
Yeah. And
for the timing, it was an obsolete Zord. Like, it didn't make sense. So that I thought was very, very cool.
Yeah. But I think it was also part of the fact that they made it's a 2-player game, so you could both play as Megazords against.
True.
You know what I mean? So that might have been part of it. I mean, obviously it's fantastic that they're both in there, but maybe that was the reason they did it. I don't know.
Yeah. And then you get to pick the Falcon Zord in your first battle in the movie too, and I thought that was amazing. Like, okay, could have just given you the Ninja Megazord, but I was very impressed by their selection of Megazords in this, especially for 1995 this game came out?
Yeah. No, and this came out in like peak Power Rangers. Like, this was like the top. The movie was like the peak. Well, I can't say that because I feel like it still peaked.
I think the movie was I think it was the peak, but then it started to go after that. I think the movie did a lot of damage. It did for me.
Like, you didn't like the movie?
I thought, I loved the movie.
Okay.
Because it was setting up what I thought was going to be season 3.
Oh, I see. Okay. And then they went into totally.
And then they went into totally, because I thought when 1 went into 2, season 2 had that. It was on primetime television. Think about that. Primetime television for a kids show.
Yeah, my parents watched it with me. I remember it was like summertime.
It was
like
big
they let us stay up late for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big deal. And Zed and new Zords, and I thought instead of that prime time show, because it wasn't just 1 episode, I believe it was 3.
Yeah.
2 or 3. I thought this was the equivalent of that. All right, we're getting ready, and here comes the new season, and what the hell is this?
Yeah,
even as a kid, different. I felt like, what was the point of the movie?
Right. If they had just started with the Ninja Zords and just kept it going from there, hell, you wouldn't even have to bring back Ivan Ooze or whatever. Like, you could have just done your own thing. But the problem, you know why they did that, though? The problem is because in the Japanese version of Super Sentai, the Power Rangers that use the Ninja Zords look totally different. That's why they did the alien. They were the Alien Rangers.
Exactly, they were Rangers of Aquitar, the Alien Rangers, but they still had to redo the footage. So it didn't matter. Essentially, if they skipped episodes, they introduced Rita Revolto, but essentially they made the movie non-canon to introduce a secondary character.
Yeah,
in Rita Revolto. If you got rid of the whole first 2 or 3 episodes where they lose the Zords and they made Ninja, if you got rid of all of that, then the movie becomes canon. But I guess they just weren't thinking about it. They figured kids are stupid and they're gonna watch the movie and they're gonna watch the show. And for me, I was at the age where I was starting to get out of that.
Yeah.
I went, what's the point? I just watched this, and now you're telling me essentially it doesn't mean anything?
Yeah.
Now, it sounds really stupid, but those 2 years as a kid, so this came out in 95?
95, and so it's 2 or 3 years.
So I was 9 years old. I was 9 years old. I was getting, now if this was 93, 94, I wouldn't care, but those 2 years, I mean, you have kids, they're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old is when they're really starting to understand, what's the point? What's going on here?
Right. It threw you. In an isolation, the movie is fantastic. In terms of the canon of Power Rangers, it's terrible and pointless because it's
and they morphed out of order too.
Oh well, that
even as a kid, I'm like, what is
everyone?
This?
Listen, if you're listening to this and you know what the hell Power Rangers are, you know the order that Power Rangers morph in. I'm not even gonna have to go through it. You know it, like you just know it.
And
if
Tommy
you go
does not say White Tiger.
He says Tiger Zord, which because he used to say Dragon Zord, which again, like I guess he could have said Green Dragon. I don't know. It's also in hindsight, by the way, I have a beef with that whole situation because every other Ranger was some sort of mythic or realistic, like prehistoric creature, and then you got fucking Dragon Zord. Like that's not a real dinosaur. Why is he part of the Ranger? Anyway, sorry, that's just
because just saying dragon doesn't have the same punch.
That's true.
Everything is 2 syllables.
Yeah, everything else is at least 3. You're right. That's a good point.
Yeah, 2 or 3 syllables. He's just dragon.
Yeah. Dragon Zord. Even Dragon Zord sounds... Anyway, that's 3 syllables. Anyway, the point being, watch the movie and watch them morph out of order. It looks really weird. I will say, though, again, it's disappointing they weren't in the game. I love the suits in the Power Rangers movie.
The suits in the movie, they needed to upgrade them. They actually look like... Those, to me, are the definitive looking Power Ranger uniforms. They look like almost Iron Man-esque.
You know what it reminded me of? It was like that was around the same time like Batman Forever came out and they spruced up Batman's suit at the end there with the extra armor and whatever. I was digging the vibe, right? I was like, this is
I liked it too.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic.
How about some behind the scenes footage, besides a little bit behind the scenes stuff for the movie?
For the movie, yeah, absolutely.
So there was a scene where Aisha gets like
the head beams or whatever.
Yes, which was pretty cool. I liked that. That I didn't mind. And then Rocky gets the infrared beams.
Yep.
That's cool, too. The original idea was no visors. Their eyes are showing.
And I was going to say, I heard about that, too. Yeah.
What are you thinking?
That's a terrible idea.
Yeah. Because the eyes didn't line up perfectly. Like Aisha, she's a tiny little girl.
Yeah.
Not making fun of her. I've met her. She's super nice. She's probably one of the nicest Rangers I've met. She's so tiny.
Yeah, helmet wasn't... Yeah.
The helmet wasn't eye level for her, and that means they had to be in the suits more often.
Yeah.
So whenever you went to do a close-up, Aisha's eyes weren't level with the visor, so it was just a terrible idea.
Yep. No, I agree. So, and again, unfortunately, those suits are not featured in the game, but you still get the classic Power Ranger. Or they're in the cuts. They're in the cutscenes, and that's fine. I will say, one of the other things I like... So, like, we talked about all the different boss battles. One of my favorite things, and I don't think it's ever in the show. I think it's for the game. But like Tommy fights Lord Zed as like a giant, and he fights his hand. You remember that scene? Like they were. So basically, I forget what level it's in between, but like you're fighting through, and then you bust open this like rock, and you go in and you fight Lord Zed's hand. Did you ever do that in the game?
I don't remember that.
Unless you skip. Yeah. So like basically, it's like a little minute. It doesn't. I thought you had to play through the level and actually have to go through it to keep going, but maybe it's like an optional thing that I always just did. But like you knock over a boulder, and it's in that land where it's like all rocky and deserty or whatever, and like you break open a boulder, you get transported to like an alternate dimension or whatever, and you're fighting Lord Zed's hand.
Is that when you're Oh crap! Is you're
like doing the power transfer?
Yes, I was going to say. Okay,
It's before the end where you beat up the statue. It's like you have to go in, and again, I think it's part of you have to do it.
Okay, so what I'm thinking is that's in the story mode, or the storyline. Excuse me, that's changing because when they do that in the show,
is that where Tommy fights Lord Zed? Is that storyline?
Jason's in his Red Dragon Zord. Dragon Thunder Zord. So it's him in like the robot form of it.
Yeah.
He fights Serpentera.
Oh, okay.
And Tor, the shuttle Zord, is there, and he gets fucking squished.
God, yes. Okay.
So that would have been a whole nother trying to stay true to the comic, true to the show. Lord Zed had to be involved somehow.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. That I get. Okay, cool. Anyway, so I just thought that was a fun little side level, but I didn't realize that was the reason for it.
Yep.
Side note also, I love the music in this game.
The music in this is fantastic. It is directly from the show.
Yes.
The White Ranger theme is in it. The song called 541 is in it. It is a Sega instrumental version of all the songs from Season 2 and Season 3. They're not the greatest sounding, but you could definitely figure out, if you're a Power Ranger fan, what tune it is.
Yeah.
And it has that Sega grunge theme to it.
The crunch. Oh, yeah. I love the Sega crunch for music.
It's such a Sega theme. It's so great.
So Ron Wasserman is the guy that composed and produced the original songs. If you listen to his original, like, they sound pretty crunchy on their own, right? It's the perfect, Sega is the perfect, like, system to do his songs justice. To the point where I found his album on Amazon Music years later. And there was one in particular that's my favorite, just because it's got a really cool riff in the middle of it, and I think it's called "We Need a Hero."
Yes,
and that's in that level. We were talking about the power transfer level within the desert, and so I love that. I love the White Ranger song, like I love it all. And so the music in this top notch. We talked about the gameplay, so you start off again.
So wait, did you know I just want to jump in for a second because we're talking about Wasserman. Is how you say his last name?
Ron Wasserman. Yeah.
Not only did he do all of the original Power Rangers stuff, like he did Mighty Morphin, he did Zeo. I'm not sure if he did Turbo, but I'm pretty sure he did everything up until Space. He did the X-Men theme.
Oh shit! Well, that's why I love it so much.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And you're not skipping that intro.
Saban, no, you don't skip that fucking intro. And you also don't skip Power Rangers either. I mean, you just don't.
Yeah.
So I'm looking. I thought I noticed it because I'm starting to binge watch the original '92 X-Men.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Sometimes at the end of it, they'll have a Saban logo. I'm like, he had his hand on freaking everything. This guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he had his hand in, obviously, Power Rangers for many years. He had a hand in X-Men. VR Troopers, Big Bad Beetleborgs. He had a hand in a lot of things.
Yep. I'm pretty sure Spider-Man, pretty much all the Marvel animated stuff.
Yeah. So I just did a little research right now. I typed in his name, and then it came up with, oh, my God, he did the X-Men theme song, too.
Yeah. And that tracks.
And We Need a Hero is a great theme also.
Yes. Oh, my God.
I know. It's called Power Rangers Redux.
Yes, that's the album. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, my God. That is so great.
I literally will just, if I'm going for a run or whatever, I'll pop that on and just like, I talk about X-Men running through a wall. This is a whole album of wall running songs.
Oh, it is. Yeah. If you need to be the Juggernaut and go through multiple walls, this is what you do.
There it is, man. Oh, it's so fucking good. Okay. Sorry, I feel like I'm swearing a lot of this episode. This is just another one that I get excited about because this is truly, I mean, it's one of my favorite games that I never owned as a kid, and it's so good. It is, the one thing I will say, I can't even say it's a bad thing because it's whatever. It's not a very long game.
No, it's not.
You can probably beat this, like we talked about this before we started recording, like less than an hour. Like you haven't beaten it, but you were very close. Like you only had one more fight.
Yep.
Like you got all the way to the end for the final battle, and you're like, all right, I know what happens here probably, and you'd be absolutely correct. Basically, what you think happens. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you punch or kick Ivan Ooze in the groin?
You do not kick him in the groin or knee him in the groin. But you do, so basically you fight like the original like Scorpatron and the Hornetron.
Yep.
And then Ooze goes into the Hornetron, you fight him in space as like
just like in the movie. Okay.
And then I'm trying to think. No, so basically you fight him on the moon for some reason because you have to be able to walk. And then it goes to, I don't think you control it. It's like a cutscene where like you're basically fighting him in space and then hit him into the meteor.
Yeah, but you don't kick him in the groin.
I don't think you kick him in the groin. I'd have to go rewatch the cutscene, but I don't think groin kneeing was in the game.
Now I'm
The other thing, by the way, so when you booted up the game, did you watch through the cutscene and all that stuff?
Yeah, it was very. They went way deeper than they had to for a kids game. I mean, Power Rangers is always going to be a kids game, no matter what. It's a kids franchise. But like Battle for the Grid that came out probably 5 or 6 years ago, it's not really a kids game, like because the difficulty of it, and then the storylines from the comics with Lord Draken. But for all intents and purposes, it's a kids game, especially in '95. There was no, hey, I'm an older Power Ranger fan. It's like it really didn't exist.
They didn't exist. I mean, they might have, but those are the weirdos. You know?
But they went into depth about this with the cutscene about the Rangers, and then the cutscene about Ivan Ooze, and then the still images about them going to the about Ivan Ooze, blowing up Zordon, and then the Rangers getting the ninja powers, going to the other planet. Like they put a lot more effort than they needed to in this.
Well, and the one thing I wanted to point out is if you watch that cutscene, there's one thing they never explained, and I don't know, I'd like to get your thoughts, is did you notice that Ivan Ooze is missing an eye in his cutscenes?
Can't say I did.
So if you go back and watch it, like he's missing an eye for some, and it's very clear, like he lights his face up, he's got one eye, it's like an empty socket on his left side, I think. And maybe it's, I don't know.
Maybe
matter.
Ivan Ooze, not Ivan Ooze.
That's probably why he's called Ivan Ooze.
Exactly.
I didn't even think about that. So anyway, I'm wondering if like they were trying to just make it even more unique to make it even less canon. I don't know. But I thought that was an interesting I'd love to find out why they did that. I have no idea. So when all is said and done, I mean, in my opinion, this is the definitive way to play through a Power Rangers game if you don't like just the fighting games. Because the fighting games are fantastic, at least on Super Nintendo. I played the one on Sega like once or twice back in the day. It didn't do it for me. I played the Super Nintendo. I think I showed you the Super Nintendo one because I had found it on like an emulator and was like, holy shit, didn't know this existed.
Either did I.
Yeah, and maybe we'll do an episode on it one day down the road. But for right now, like that's an amazing game. It's a kind of a Turtles tournament fighter fighting game, Street Fighter, whatever. You know what you're getting with that. This is, in my opinion, if not that, like a beat 'em up is the best way to play Power Rangers, and you can't just play one player. It's got to be a co-op experience for the Power Rangers.
I agree. And it gives you a little bit of everything. It gives you just the story mode is the movie, the show, back to the movie, the original Rangers, the Power Transfer Rangers, Season 2 Zords, Season 3 Zords. It literally gives you everything. It takes what the Power Rangers did for 2 years almost, 2 seasons worth of Power Rangers, and the movie and goes, here you go. Here's the last group of Mighty Morphin. And I was very, very surprised. Very, very surprised by it. And then Season 3 happened.
Yes.
There you go.
Now, do you have any little fun facts or behind the scenes for this before we jump into some scratching games?
I mean, other than, you get to select the older Rangers, which I thought was a very good thing. From what I researched, you were exactly right, Dan. It started as a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger game.
Yeah.
Just a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger game, and then they did not want to develop just the movie. I don't think they had enough time to do so it became this kind of hybrid game. But nothing that really jumped out to me. But I think they realized that the audience on Sega was a little bit more mature.
Right.
That's why you got a little bit more detail in everything, but it surpassed what it needed to be at the time. It certainly did.
I agree. Yeah, and so the game, by the way, we didn't even say it was developed by a Japanese developer called Banpresto Games. And I was just looking them up to see what else they'd done. Most of these games I had never heard of before, but I will tell you they have their hand in a lot of Japanese-inspired games. Yeah. So they made Ultraman Fighting 0, 2, and 3. They made a few Dragon Ball Z games. They made a lot of, they're called Super Robot Wars. Looks like they made a ton of those games. And then there's like a few different like random, one called Lode Runner 3D, which was very well known on N64, I believe. So they made a few different games, but a lot of their games were inspired by Japanese properties. And so this was the only Power Ranger game they ever made, by the way. But I thought it was just kind of cool that they did that, because I remember their logo, but this was the only game I remember seeing their logo for, is that weird looking eye mask with their Banpresto logo over the top of it. But anyway, so I don't know, man, this game it's special for me. Like it's one of my favorites. It's one of those where we've kind of gone back and forth on like games that were like super nostalgic for one or the other, sometimes both, obviously. This is definitely one for me that, because I played it so much as a kid, like there were very few games that I would rent on repeat. Like, I love this game so much.
One thing as a Ranger fan that jumps out is, I mean, we've discussed on multiple other uploads on Generation S about, Jason, Zach, and Trini leaving the show, the characters, and then the actors and actress, and why they did so. And for those that don't know, they left the show for contract disputes and money issues and all that fun stuff that happens behind the scenes. Once they left the show and Rocky, Adam, and Aisha became full-time Rangers, you never heard their names mentioned again. Nope. You never did. You did not. I mean, Jason comes back in Zeo and in the Turbo movie, which the Turbo movie is canon, by the way.
Oh, it is. Yeah, that's the difference.
That's the difference.
Legitimately segues.
They learned their lesson,
Yep.
And I can also see the criticism of, come on, not every kid knew that it wasn't canon or what that meant. They didn't care. It was just they wanted to watch the show. Well, obviously, they must have learned their lesson, because when the Turbo movie came out, they did that. The Turbo movie was the transition from Zeo to Turbo.
Yep.
On the show, though, you never heard those names ever mentioned again until Zeo.
Yep.
Trini's name is never mentioned, ever. They do something with Kim because they have to introduce Tom and Kat getting together. But it's few and far between. You never hear the name Trini mentioned ever again until Once and Always. The whole thing is about her, and rightfully so. So, as a kid, you go, wow, they're bringing back I miss them because they're the originals. No matter what, they're the originals.
They are. Yeah.
And as an adult, you go, oh shit, that's funny because on the show they are freaking blackballed.
Yes.
You do not hear them. They are not mentioned at all. So that is an interesting little nugget in that. You have to be a real Power Ranger fan to know that they're not mentioned. And then the movie itself, it's never been discussed or even acknowledged. Not even a joke. There's nothing. There's no Easter egg. There's no joke. In the X-Men show, in X-Men 97, there's a scene, I believe Cyclops is talking to Cable, and he gives them the X-Men suit, the traditional yellow and blue. And he goes, blue and yellow's would you prefer black spandex?
Or black leather or
black
whatever,
leather.
Yeah.
That's a joke because they make a joke in the original movie about blue and gold or blue and yellow. Now they're making a joke about it's they make fun of it. There's nothing ever discussed in the Power Ranger universe. Maybe in the comics, but on TV there's not even a joke.
Not acknowledged. How are they doing? They wrote me a letter. Nothing.
Nothing. Not even a joke about Ooze. I hate purple ooze. Something like that. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then season 3 completely shits on it by introducing Ninjor. It's very strange that there's never been a tongue-in-cheek joke about it.
Nope.
But they released figures of it. They've released the Lightning Collection. There's the Ninja Rangers are there. It could be season 3. But they're doing not sideshow, but these really upscale statues that are $175 a piece, and they're from the movie. It's the armor version of the suits. So I always found that very interesting.
Yeah.
And I maybe has something to do with copyright with Ivan Ooze. Why couldn't you bring him in as a one-off character for something?
Right. Yeah,
Anything.
that's the thing. Like you said, there's no... It's a separate universe, unrelated... And I'm trying to think of other shows that came out where they did a movie, but most of it was tied back in and became canon for the show. This was weird. You know what I'm saying?
It's nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And the thing is also the Power Rangers have this great, critically acclaimed comic books series.
Yeah.
And they introduce and create Lord Draken, but at least Lord Draken at least made it into, he was the focal point of a video game.
Right.
He's the story mode, and that game is essentially Shattered Grid, the video game.
Yes. Well, it's called Battle for the Grid.
Yeah.
So,
and Tommy Jason David Frank did a live action commercial portraying Lord Draken. So at least that's there. This is nothing.
Nothing has come up since.
It's nothing. It's it's a villain that you could remake or do something with.
And who knows? Honestly, because we're coming up on 30 years, by the way, just for those keeping
of the movie, yeah.
Of the movie. Next year will be 30 years. Maybe they'll bring him back. I don't know. Yeah, because you're right. And it's funny because I was looking up, did they make movie versions of the figures legit? And they have. You can get them on Amazon. But that's it. That's the closest we've got. It's almost the closest I can compare it to would be some of the Batman movies, they've never really harkened back to like the Batman Forever or I guess sort of with Batman and Robin with the new Flash movie with George Clooney, but like those types of things were like, oh, we just pretend they didn't exist or whatever. It's weird that this was that because it was such a great movie that everyone loved. I don't think anyone hated this movie as far as its audience went. You know what I mean?
So they did make a semi-recent figure of Ivan Ooze. I'm trying to bring up the information.
Okay.
If they give me a year. But it's not like right now. It looks like it was probably within the last 10 years.
Okay.
Because it wasn't made by Hasbro, and Hasbro's had the license, I think, for the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
A terrible looking figure. But yeah, it's just that one figure. But nothing since. So here's my thing. If they can make the figure, that means it's still a property of Power Rangers. It's not like it's a property of the movie studio and only them, because there's crazy shit like that where, look at Marvel and the X-Men. It's a whole cluster with that. Like, well, yeah, the Disney owns the animated X-Men, but not the movie version of the X-Men. It's like, oh my God, like that's cluster.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it makes no sense that you have this IP, and especially Power Rangers now is 50% nostalgia, 50% new kids.
Yes.
I mean, they made a whole special Once and Always. That's all nostalgia. That was Mighty Morphin.
Yep.
And then in the 30th season, Billy is a main character. It's nostalgia again. So
this is the time to do it, man. If they wanted to do something, this would be the time.
I agree. The timing is coming up with a reboot of the franchise. 30 years of the movie. Yeah, to me, it would generate interest if Ivan Ooze comes back as something. When they reboot the series, and people, oh my God, I remember him.
Yeah, oh yeah, no.
I mean, he looks awesome.
He does. He's a great looking villain, and he was wasted on just one movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right, before we get into some modern itch scratchers, let's go to our Threads community again at Backwards Compatible Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Threads. Give us a follow over there if you want to jump in on the community. But when I posted out for listeners to share the memories of this game, this one comes from Lip Canary. As someone who didn't care for MMPR but loved beat-em-ups, this was a fun rental. A bit on the easy side, as expected, and we talked about that already. Definitely a short game. As a kid, I loved it because it was incredibly beatable. Wolverine4263 writes in, loved that game. Thank you, Wolverine, for jumping in there. Appreciate that. And finally, MedXJAD says, wait, Genesis had the Ooze guys in it? The SNES movie game only had putties. That's wild. And you're absolutely right. That is why this is the superior version of the game. So thank you guys for sharing your feedback over on Threads, and make sure you give us a follow, get on the discussion for next week's episode. Do it now if you can. All right. Well, listen, they haven't made a lot of good Power Rangers games since, but there are a few games that are available on modern consoles that do a little thing we like to call Scratch the Itch. And the first one, Lou, is technically not out yet, so it's going to get an honorable mention here.
Sure. Is that Rita's Rewind?
It is. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind, which I believe is going to be on all major platforms.
I believe so, yes.
I'm getting it on the Nintendo Switch. I think you're probably going to get it on the PS5 or whatever. So, yeah, which I assume is going to be on Xbox, probably PC. I don't know. But it's not out yet, so it doesn't matter. I don't think there's a release date for it yet, is there?
I think it's fall of this year.
All right, so I mean, if it's coming, I'm going to be getting it. I'm very excited. If you watch the trailer for it, which I recommend you do, it is a classic co-op Power Rangers beat-em-up game, very similar to like the Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge game.
Yep.
There seems to be a big revival of like 90s inspired beat-em-ups, which I am all here for, by the way. I am so excited. So that is coming out now. Games that are out now that still kind of scratch the itch for different reasons. One, we've talked about it already, but I'm going to recommend it again. Power Rangers Battle for the Grid is a fantastic game. It's a fighting game, but you get Power Rangers from all different generations, and you fight them. It's literally like it's
Marvel vs. Capcom.
It's Marvel vs. Capcom, but in the Power Rangers universe. It's fantastic. The other one I would recommend, funnily enough, I had written this down before you said anything about it, is Streets of Rage 4. Because it is a short beat-em-up. It's easy to play. It's easy to pick up and play like Power Rangers. And you got a few different characters. I think it's probably got a little more replayability with the unlockables. But in general, a fantastic modern-day beat-em-up that will scratch that classic beat 'em up itch that you've been yearning for since a game like Power Rangers.
Agreed.
All right. Well, then with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into pop culture milestones, and then we'll wrap up here. So, again, the game was released in August of 1995, which means we're looking at the summer of 95. In the world of music, Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette was released in June of 1995, but was making significant headway, including some of its famous hits from the album, like You Oughta Know, which classic 90s song. If I ever heard one. And then Michael Jackson's You Are Not Alone was released in August 15th of 1995, was the first single in the history of the Billboard Hot 100 to debut at number 1. So, good on Michael Jackson. In the world of film, a couple of ones here, one of which I've seen, one of which I have not seen. The Usual Suspects came out August 16th, 1995, a neo-noir mystery film directed by X-Men director Bryan Singer and written by Christopher McQuarrie. Did you ever see The Usual Suspects?
No, I did not.
I think it's got Kevin Spacey in it. There's a character called Kaiser Soze that is apparently very well known. I haven't seen it. The other one, though, you might have heard of, little video game inspired film called Mortal Kombat. Came out August of 1990. Now, have you seen the Mortal Kombat movie, the original one?
Yes.
Oh, you have? Okay, cool. All right, so whenever we do an episode on Mortal Kombat, we will absolutely talk about this movie because it's one of my favorites. My kids love it. It's amazing. Came out in August 95. Up until that time, I believe, was the best reviewed and highest grossing video game inspired movie of all time. And not that there was a lot to choose from, but it beat out Super Mario Brothers and Double Dragon, basically, and Street Fighter. So it's got that going for it, which is nice. In the world of television, Xena, Warrior Princess. Remember that show?
Oh, I do.
So it didn't come out quite yet. It was coming out in early September of 95, but the buzz was a buzzin'. I think that's the way you're supposed to say it.
Yeah.
Starring Lucy Lawless. You know what was funny, too? I always felt that Xena kind of reminded me of China from the WWF. You think that was on purpose?
No, I think they were, very muscular women, so.
Muscular women with long black hair and very cool-looking armory outfits. I don't know, man. I feel like China kind of
the armor thing, yes.
Yeah, anyway. It was a spin-off, actually, from the Hercules show starring Kevin Sorbo. And then you had in September the MTV Video Music Awards, and I never watched those, so to be honest with you, it's not my thing. Did you ever watch the VMAs?
No, and I wasn't ignoring you. I was looking up when the movie for Power Rangers actually come out.
Oh, then when did the movie come out?
June 30th, 1995. So this came out. Okay. It was probably still in theaters at this point when the game came out. That's what I was waiting for you to say. And the Rangers movie came out in August. I'm like, he hasn't said it yet. When did it come out? I knew it was a summer movie, but
yeah. No, the movie didn't come out. But for so if we ever do a video game that came out in June of '95, we'll probably talk about the movie again. All right, so in the world of sports, here we go. Mike Tyson returns to boxing.
Oh yes,
after his prison sentence and his comeback fight. I actually watched this fight on YouTube not too long ago. He fought against Peter McNeely.
I guess Peter McNeely got his brains knocked out.
He did. It was pretty definitively, actually. August 19th was the fight, very highly publicized, obviously, and actually Tyson won by a disqualification. But until then, Peter McNeely was getting his ass kicked before then. So
did it kick him in the groin like the Megazord did?
I don't know if he need him in the groin or not.
Do you think Mike Tyson would be a good Power Ranger?
Do I think Mike Tyson would be a good Power Ranger? That's a good question. It depends on who he would fight. I don't know. Yes, he would need a weapon. He would his weapon would be like gauntlets or something where he can punch through mountains.
That would be great.
I feel like I would not want him to be the villain against the Power Rangers.
That's why I said, do you think he would be a good Power Ranger?
Well, I'd rather have him as that because he's not losing if he's a villain.
Imagine him giving the Power Rangers direction like Zordon.
That'd be amazing.
It would
That'd be, yeah.
All right, Ranger, I want you to get it hot and eat his children.
Oh, my God.
No, okay. But Mike, we're the good guys. That doesn't matter. Just go.
Recruit a group of teenagers with attitude.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. That was a terrible Mike Tyson impression, and I think
I do an okay again. Tyson.
It's better than mine. Yeah, no. I mean, I'm not even.
And you're very good with your voices.
Not Mike Tyson, though.
I am very good with Mike Tyson. I'm very good. At least I'm average. I think I'm average.
B+. Okay. All right. In the world of fake sports, Lou was WWF champion in August of 1995. I'll say there was only one.
There was only one.
Only one channel.
95 is Diesel.
That was the year of Diesel, my friend. Exactly right.
And the worst year financially for the WWF.
Coincidence?
Ever.
I don't know. But yes, it was in a post-Hulk Hogan world. They needed their new hero, and they thought they had it with Bret Hart, but Vince wanted somebody bigger, damn it. So he grabbed himself Kevin Nash, a.k.a. Diesel, a.k.a. Super Shredder, and he held on to that bad boy for almost a year, right? Or was it over a year?
I think it was a little over a year.
Yeah, and he lost it to Bret, right?
Brett, yep, I think he pretty much held it from November to November.
That's what it was. He lost it at Survivor Series.
Yeah, because Bret lost it at Survivor Series 94.
Diesel won it 2 days later.
Yep, and then that. Yep. Also around this time in WCW, this is when Hogan debuts.
Oh, yeah.
And wins the world title.
He held on to that for a long time.
Yeah, he won it against Flair with Shaq and Mr. T, and it was like, oh, crap.
Yep.
Tides are changing.
Oh, yeah. Now, in the world of technology, a couple of fun little milestones. So, guess what came out in August of 95? Windows 95.
Okay, I was going to go for a video game system, but...
Well, was there any video game system that came out in 95?
I was going to guess it was 95. It was going to be like the Sega Saturn or CD or Atari Jaguar or some random system that nobody liked.
Maybe. I didn't bother to check, to be honest with you. I just like to look for like news and stuff like that, but we'll look into it. But anyway, Windows 95 debuted. Obviously a huge deal in the world of computers, and the reason why we're probably both using Windows machines today is because Windows 95 was amazing at the time. Also debuting in August of 95. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Two consoles came out in 1995.
But not in August, though.
Just in general.
Okay. What were they?
I wouldn't normally do this because I could have sworn something came out in 95. I will do a little bit more. The Sony PlayStation and the Sega Saturn.
Okay.
So I want to see when they were. Okay, so the Sega Saturn came out in May 11th, 95. Okay, this is why I thought when we're talking August, PS1 came out the beginning of September of 95. That's why I was close.
Oh, you were very close.
Yes.
Okay, well, I didn't realize that. So there we go, man. PS1 on the verge of releasing in the U.S. In August of 95. Also, Netscape. Remember that company?
Yeah.
They went public in 1995 in August.
Jeez, wonder what their stock is now, or it doesn't exist.
I don't think it exists. Yeah, man. No. This was a crucial moment, by the way, in the dot-com boom of the 90s, which kind of signaled the importance of how the internet was going to change business and, quite frankly, society as a whole. So there it is.
It's true.
All right, man. That's August 95. That's our wrap on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, the game, and that's a wrap on a Sweet 16 episode of Backwards Compatible.
Good game. Okay movie. Good topic for our target audience. You know, the Power Rangers are still they're a little dormant right now. If you really think about it, this is the longest that Power Rangers have been dormant ever.
Yeah, 2023 was like the last time they had a new episode, I think, right?
It was last year at this time, the Once and Always came out, and then the 30th season, very, very quick. I think it was only maybe 10 or 12 episodes, and since then, it's really been dormant. There's been no action figures. There's been no video game. Well, Rita's Rewind is the only thing really in the last 365 days, give or take, that's come out. Hasbro is going to be letting other people make the toys and collectibles. There's been no announcement of a new series or TV or Netflix streaming. It's been pretty quiet other than this game, but some people are saying that this game is going to be the precursor to a reboot of the series, which I know sounds silly because every season is technically a reboot, but this is going to be a Mighty Morphin reboot.
Yeah. And that could draw people back in. Obviously, older, you are still a fan of the series as a whole, but a lot of people, like myself, quite frankly, after Mighty Morphin kind of phased away from Power Rangers, never really went back to it, even though I know there's some good stuff. Maybe that'll help the Mighty Morphin reboot. I know this game definitely will with Rita's Rewind coming out.
Oh, yeah.
But hey, listen, guys, if you do want Power Rangers content, there is another way to get it. If you check us out over on Generation S on YouTube, because we are putting out Power Rangers discussions pretty much every week still. We answer fan questions. We have just general topic essays that you put together. So yeah, we are still supporting the Mighty Morphin Ranger, really any Power Ranger era, over on.
It was more of the Zordon era, because there was quite a long time where I fell out of it, like almost everybody did. So I really appreciate it's great, the fan engagement. But when they ask me, so who do you think was second in command in Operation Overdrive? I'm like, oh God, help me! I gotta look it up. I gotta do some research. But it is more of the Mighty Morphin era, because that's us. That's growing up in the 90s. That was the peak.
That's Generation S, exactly. And listen, as I've said before, if you've noticed on the podcast feed, there's still episodes of Generation S, because this is the Generation S podcast network. We're just now backwards compatible, where we get to focus on retro gaming, but we are still kids who grew up in the late 90s, in the early 2000s, and so that's what our content's still going to primarily be focused on. So as a reminder, again, go check us out at Generation S on YouTube, and make sure you give us a follow over on Instagram and Threads at Backwards Compatible Podcast. Text the show if you can, but at the very least, maybe just shoot a message over there on Instagram. I'd love to chat with you on there, and still happy to give you a shout out if you'd like. If you have gaming suggestions or memories you want to share. And remember this week's question, guys. What is your gaming muscle memory? Text us your answer. You'll get shouted out next week. Or if you want to shoot me a quick message over on Instagram, I'll shout you out from there as well. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with...
We got to give the teaser for the game next week.
I was just about to, Lou.
Well, you went really to the end. I got nervous.
No. Okay. What's next week's episode, Lou?
No, you get. I'm sorry. I'm very excited.
I was gonna tee it off to you, bro.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, can I do my thing real quick?
Oh my God.
All right, we're gonna be back next week with episode 17, and next week we are discussing.
We are doing, in honor of everybody's favorite semi-anti-hero, or just, is he an anti-hero, Wolverine, or is he an angry hero?
Wolverine is he's not an anti-hero at this point. I've never once thought he's always been a good guy. Like Venom is an anti-hero. Mm-hmm. He has done bad things. He's done good things. Wolverine has always had the best intentions and has always done good things.
But doesn't he say, I'm very good at what I do, but what I do ain't pretty? Or ain't nice or something like that?
That's fine. That's okay. He gets the job done. That's fine.
So in honor of Deadpool and Wolverine, we are going to be reviewing X-Men versus Street Fighter on the PS1.
Yes, which is basically the arcade port, right?
Exactly. So X-Men vs. Street Fighter on either of those systems. Well, it's not really a system, but you know what I mean. You could do either
platforms.
Well, there you go.
And you'll notice that we specifically said X-Men versus Street Fighter. Don't think we have forgotten about, in my opinion, the superior games, that being Marvel versus Capcom. Those will be absolutely covered at a later date.
Yes, they certainly will.
Just throwing that out there. And we'll be very excited. Maybe we'll try to jump in and do a quick bonus episode review of Deadpool 3 if we both manage to go see it around the same time.
I'm hoping.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. We will be back next week talking X-Men versus Street Fighter. And until then, we will talk to you soon.
Goodbye.